Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce and another fantastic goal by Marco Reus. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond compare.
Jetzt kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von Inzo an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!
Welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch. Today I'm joined by Joey and Brian. How are you guys doing this weekend or this week?
I'm a bit exhausted, but I guess I should say it was time well spent at the soccer tournament cheering on Borussia Dortmund. How about you, Brian?
I'm pretty tired myself. Had a pretty eventful weekend with some personal events, but it was all very fun. So yeah, doing pretty well. Can't complain.
First off, thank you, Joey, for covering the soccer tournament and Borussia Dortmund's participation in it yet again.
Big up, Joey.
Yet again, another disappointing appearance at the tournament. Do you want to give us a quick rundown of how it went?
I sure would. And you say disappointing, but my experience is kind of the opposite between the games and my interactions with some of the players and staff of Dortmund. The whole thing was a really positive experience. So just to give you a quick rundown of the matches. Game 1 was Wednesday morning at 8:30 a.m., bright and early, against a team called Freedom United. And they were a team of Air Force Academy veterans. And Dortmund very kind of expected. Honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect because I didn't know a lot of the players on the team that well, or on this roster. And the first half was a bit shaky, but they definitely figured something out in the second half. But it just wasn't quite enough because they lost that one 2-3. Then they did play again later in the same day, so 2 matches in one day, and that was another 2-3 loss. But I have to admit that both of the performances were pretty admirable to watch, and I have to give a shout out to Dortmund's keeper for this competition, Matt Mischione. If you're listening, forgive me if I mispronounced your last name. But he was really impressive. That first match, he didn't score. He saved a penalty, which was really impressive. And then that second game, he had saves all over the place, including a really good double save that I think we posted on the Dortmund Dispatch Instagram at one point. So both of those losses were unfortunate, and I would even argue with that second one, it was a little bit unlucky, because the winning goal was scored off of what I thought was a foul in the other team's box, and then the counterattack. But it is all perspective, and there's no VAR at the soccer tournament, so you just gotta kind of roll with what the referee says. Heading into Game 3, unfortunately, I knew that Dortmund were eliminated because head-to-head was the first tiebreaker in the group, and they were playing the undefeated team next, Plymouth Argyle, and even with a win, both teams that defeated Dortmund were playing one another, so whichever team lost was still going to get that third position in the group ahead of Dortmund. And it really is a shame because Dortmund dominated the third game against Plymouth Argyle and won 5-3, or honestly, it might have been 5-2 actually. But it was a great performance, and they had a positive goal differential to finish out the group, which is a lot better than their first year at TST, where they finished with a negative 17 goal differential and 3 losses. Each match they looked better than the previous. And I do have to say that I'm not too surprised. They have a few of these players in there who are professionals in the major arena soccer league. And they're just, they've got a different kind of perspective for the playing style of 7v7, smaller fields, smaller goals. And later on, I did get a chance to speak with the general manager for the team, Julius Averke. And again, apologies if I mispronounced your name. Um, but he was kind of explaining to me a little bit, because Felipe Santana was there, but and they had a plans to have a couple of other club legends there as well. Um, excuse me, I need a sip of water to keep this TST rant going. But he also gave me some really great insight into how the squad is picked. Because as much as we'd love to see a whole squad of club legends, it is a little bit naive to think that they are going to be able to compete at the highest level, especially against some of these teams that are full of futsal players or major arena soccer players, because it's in some ways it's almost a different game. Um, so it again as a whole, I was really impressed by it. And that third game especially, um, what was just fun. And I have to also give a shout out to these two fans that were there cheering on Dortmund with me, Mike and Josh, because when we were getting ready for the second half against Plymouth Argyle, I just figured I'd try something. And I asked them, like, if I lead a Dortmund chant, will you guys like help push it? And they said, yeah. And as soon as that second half started, I turned around and I faced the crowd and I yelled, like, come on, Dortmund supporters, something like this. Like, let's show everybody our support. Let's be louder than Plymouth Argyle. And I started yelling, let's go Dortmund. And I was thinking it was going to be like a let's go Dortmund with some clapping or stomping on the bleachers, but it was sort of a back and forth. I yelled, let's go Dortmund. And then the crowd repeated, let's go Dortmund. And it was a lot of fun and definitely gave me some delusions of being up in the yellow wall with a megaphone yelling at the ultras in a Champions League game, and again, just delusions, as this was a essentially a dead rubber in the group stage of the soccer tournament. But if Dortmund is going to go out, at least they went out on a really positive note, I think. And I might have already mentioned this, but they were the only team with a positive goal differential that was eliminated. And had the tiebreaker in the group been goal differential and not head to head, then Dortmund would have easily secured one of the 8 third place spots in the last 32. So I do think they were a bit unlucky there. But still, in terms of the crew that they brought, everybody was really friendly and approachable, surprisingly so. I mean, I immediately, after the first game, went up to Felipe Santana and told him that I've been a fan for a long time, and it really felt like he genuinely appreciated that. And I got a nice selfie with him. And then kind of being invited to a meet and greet with the players, just by one of the guys on the Dortmund staff was pretty cool too. And everybody, I mean, again, everybody's so humble and there's a lot of humility. And I think that that really makes sense to me. I think these guys were really representing the Dortmund brand well, especially ahead of like the Club World Cup when they're trying to grow, when they're really trying to grow the brand in the US. Soccer.com had a big pavilion there with a bunch of different swag for different teams, and we know Dortmund just signed a some kind of like sponsorship deal with Soccer.com.
30 million per year, Puma.
Boom.
I don't know the Soccer.com one.
Soccer.com,
We'll get to the Puma one.
is like distribution for much of the US, I think. But and then another thing that Julius, the general manager, told me too, was that when they're recruiting these guys, they really look for guys who can represent the brand well first and foremost. I mean, it is important that they have qualities that they can bring to the team, but at the same time, they really want stand-up guys who are gonna represent the brand in a positive way. And if these are the guys that are going to be at PR events, face to face, interacting with fans, then this is really good for Dortmund. Um, and in addition, in the fan zone of TST, which is part of the festival, they did have quite the little setup, which included a big Dab beer van, which was painted black and yellow, and on the side it was something was written along the lines of it was like beer so good you'll forget it's called football or something like that. Uh, um, and they also had a big Dortmund painted yellow food truck where I enjoyed on two separate occasions a nice bratwurst. So that was a lot of fun. And they've just there's swag left and right. They're handing out these flags. I got a foam one of these here. I don't even know they made these for Dortmund. So they're also handing these
You
things
got the
out
whole
too.
haul.
Oh yeah, they gave me all kinds of stuff. I got the royal the royal treatment, and I guess this last one technically I did pay for, but I mean
Technically.
technically, but I mean they gave me a media pass for the tournament, so that was free. But a nice new Dortmund scarf with oh, it's pretty much just Dortmund on one side, and you've got the TST sevens on the other side. Um, if you're listening on Spotify, I'm showing these via video, so check out our YouTube if you want to see a couple of the fun things. And my nice Dortmund hat, which Emma actually gave this to me, a good friend of mine. Um, she's a B. She gave this to me at TST 2 years ago, and it got upgraded this year with a couple of signatures. I can't read them all, but the one that I am most excited about is that fancy Felipe Santana right there. And it had to get the coach Drew Wright's signature because he's been there the last couple of years, and um, he's just a really nice guy too. Again, everybody I spoke to who was employed by Dortmund, who was representing Dortmund. I mean, as far as PR goes, I think that I would say it was a real success for them. I did ask if Dortmund was going to be returning to TST next year, and they wouldn't commit. It sounded like that was a decision that one had not been made yet, and also would come from somebody higher than the folks at TST, or yeah, the folks from Dortmund at TST. Um, I did also hear uh, some, I suppose we should call it hearsay, but when I was home watching a separate game on the YouTube stream, one of the commentators did mention that there are talks of potentially moving the soccer tournament next year, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see it move to a larger venue, just because unfortunately this part of the South, this area in North Carolina, while we do have NC Courage and there is a growing fan base of soccer.
Joey, NC Courage, who lost 3-1 to my Washington Spirit, by the way, this past weekend.
Yep,
That's the same one,
but
right?
it is. Um, but I do think that a tournament like this that is attracting players like Nani, like Sergio Aguilera, um, it's it's hard for me to imagine that like they're going to attract more fans if this is someplace closer to a big city, or if they had this in on the west coast somewhere. um I like Wake Med Soccer Park, but it's a half-hour drive from where I live, so it's really convenient. So in that sense, I hope it stays in Cary. But I think that probably sums up about everything I have on the soccer tournament. Unless you guys have any questions, we also have a fun audio clip to share with you all from my friends Mike and Josh, who I met. Again, a shout out to them. And they helped me cheer on Dortmund in that Plymouth Argyle game.
Shout out to you, Mike and Josh, for creating the atmosphere then.
So we just finished watching Borussia Dortmund defeat Plymouth Argyle 5-2, and I am standing with a couple of Borussia Dortmund fans right now who helped me lead a very exciting chant. I like to think that we acted as the eighth man for Borussia Dortmund this time, since this is a 7v7. But just to start off, what are you guys' names?
Yeah, my name is Mike Gabato.
My name is Josh Kunsis.
And where did you travel to TST in Cary, North Carolina from?
I came all the way from Phoenix, Arizona.
And I live right up the street, Greensboro, North Carolina.
Awesome. So some nearby,
Yeah.
you're a bit further away. And what is it about Borussia Dortmund that draws your fanship or your fandom?
Yeah, man. It's the talent. They produce them so young, right? I mean, so many great players come through there 18, 19 years old, and they're happy to nurture them that way. You just don't see it in these bigger clubs like that. And Dortmund is one of the biggest clubs, and they're happy to do it. So they're just always so fun to watch, just all action. They're great, man. They're just great.
I can mirror that, and I think the thing with Dortmund is like you see all this young talent coming up through the mix, and it's not by just scouting alone. You look at their facilities, how their academy, their training regimens, even the state-of-the-art equipment they're using to train their players. I mean, it's night and day different from everybody else. So there's a reason why they develop such great players over and over and over. So.
And do you guys have a favorite Dortmund player, either past, present, or on the TST squad?
So, you know what? I have lots of favorites, man. As a former midfielder myself, I loved İlkay Gündoğan. Just unbelievable midfielder, of course. Mario Götze, classic. And Marco Reus. And, he's here in the MLS now, just bringing some extra notoriety as well. I love to see that.
Oh, yeah. Royce, Hummels, I'm a United fan as well, and Kagawa, when he came over to United, I was so excited,
Shinji's great.
Shinji was great.
Yeah,
man.
so, you can't even, you could just keep going and going.
Yeah, the list is endless.
Well, I really appreciate you guys taking this time to chat with me for a couple minutes. Are there any social media that you'd like to plug?
Ambitious Strike. We sell some soccer apparel. Just casual soccer lifestyle brand. We sell jerseys as well. So Ambitious Strike on Instagram, STRYK. But
Ambitious Strike,
aside from that, we're here just to enjoy the tournament. We appreciate you leading the line and getting us pumped out there.
That was a fun chant,
that was
man.
great.
Thanks for bringing it home.
Help, you bet. Anyway, thanks so much, guys.
So coming up, we have the Club World Cup, and so Dortmund will be playing serious-ish games again. I'll leave the asterisks up to you guys, but what are you expecting from this first match up against Fluminense, which is probably our hardest group match?
I would say, you got to expect a win, right? Especially considering the run that the team has been on since, the season closed out. Obviously, Fluminense is still playing competitive matches. I believe they're still in the Comebol de Sudamericana and Copa do Brasil. So I think with them playing those tournaments, they might be just a tad sharper. But then again, at the same time, we're not too far off of where we saw the season end. And they have been in training for a little while again. So I expect it to be a pretty good game. What do you think, Joey?
I agree with a lot of that. There is certainly the aspect of match fitness or I guess match form because Fluminense has been playing recently. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is the New York City match.
Yes,
so
which
I
I
know
will be
that.
at.
Yeah, so I know that like Cincinnati has a really big German population, and I'm confident that fans are going to turn up for Dortmund in the latter two matches. But the one in New York City, I think the crowd is anybody's guess. I really don't know.
I don't think we need to guess. I think it'll be very Brazilian, unless some of the current political situation has a negative effect on that, which I do think will play a factor, given all the local fan groups, whether it's for the U.S. men's national team, various MLS teams, and otherwise playing a factor in the crowd. I do think that'll be a more Brazilian crowd no matter what.
I will say though, I'm not really worried about the Dortmund showing. Obviously, we have our fan club, Brooklyn Bruce, and we're all going out there and we're gonna do our best. We have our own, I believe it's like a whole fan sector that's gonna be straight up Dortmund fans, and that should be pretty cool. So I'm not necessarily worried about the Dortmund showing there either in terms of fans. I think we'll be able to make enough noise to make it a good one, at least from that sense too. So.
I'm not entirely sure what to expect from this tournament as a whole. I think there's something of a wild card with the Club World Cup in terms of how seriously the clubs and players take it. It seems like they are taking it somewhat seriously. But because it's so new, I guess we'll find out.
I think once again the idea is an interesting one. We're just once again coming back to that same problem of overplaying players, straining them before the season, not giving them proper rest time, and then you have the prospect of injuries, possibly serious injuries happening, and that hampering their regular season. So that is one thing to keep in mind with regards to that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's still a controversial one. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if it picks up, and if the showing in terms of fans is good, and if it's something that people will take seriously in the future. I think that's something that we really won't know until maybe a couple iterations of it. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be taken seriously just because of the money involved in terms of like which players play, because it's heavily incentivized to have you advance. So the first off, this tournament is a little discriminatory in terms of how you make money. So this will actually benefit Borussia Dortmund. It may not be what we or a Just World would have for performances, because the initial payment, the minimum guaranteed payment for every club, is based off of uh, a different structure based off what region you're from. And so obviously like Real Madrid is going to have like the biggest draw, and then your English teams are going to have the biggest draw. They're being comfortably paid for it, because like the minimum European team can make is like 12.6 million, and the maximum a like New Zealand Australian team can make is like 2 to 5 for just like being in the tournament as their base payment, whatever. Like obviously if they win, which they're not going to, because Bayern signed a guy at 18 who was playing pretty well in Australia, and he's been playing pretty well in the fourth tier of German football, which is a regional league. So that's kind of the gap we're talking about here. So I do think some of these games are going to be very sparsely attended. I My estimate based off what FIFA posted as the prize pool, Dortmund can look to make between 50 and 60 million, depending on the draw, if they make it to the semifinal. Like I think that's the range you're looking at. In the group stage, it's just 2 million for a win and like 1 million for a loss. So I assume like you meet in the middle for a draw. So like as long as you advance, I think you're fine. But I do think Dortmund will try and win the group to get that easier draw in the knockouts. But I'll talk more about this on our next episode with a surprise guest returning to the show, who's one of our most appreciated guests. I'll save my opinion for then. But let's get into some other news. And this is the news you've been waiting for us to talk about, obviously. We're talking about Jobe Bellingham coming in. The fee has been reported, I think at this point, most reliably at like 30.5 to 31.5, but could be as much as 33 initially, with potentially 5 million in 3 to 5 million in add-ons, depending on which journalist you believe. And then an additional 10 to 15% sell-on clause. We don't know the contingencies that may affect that sell-on clause, whether it like gets capped out, whatever it may be, or if it's just flat, if it's off the profit, if it's off the total fee. Like there's so many things we just don't know about. But we know the general idea of what this fee looks like. Some sources claim the signing fee is closer to 30.5, we've heard. He has completed the medical today, and the announcement is set for tomorrow. Bild claimed that our bosses, our staff, was incredibly impressed by the midfielder in his age 18 season, who has played 3,500 minutes of senior football, shockingly, came over and was in incredible shape. I mean, who would have thought that the professional athlete that you spent 30 million euros on came in good shape. I don't know, Brian. Do you think that was a good expectation? Do you think that's just like a fun build off season report? So sorry. Let me ask a serious question
Go
rather
for
than
it. Go
like
for it.
on the little thing. How do you feel about this transfer? Seeing
Sure.
that fee, it's a little bit over what Dortmund clearly wanted to pay with that 25 plus 5. But how do you feel seeing the fee?
So I mean, the fee is more. Yeah, I mean, you already said it. It's more than what would have been expected. But at the same time, like the way I look at it, you also have to keep in mind that there's a perspective change in terms of inflation and how much players cost these days. Um, Also, Sunderland didn't really have an incentive to sell outside of just really, I guess, having that gentleman's agreement with Job. I think what was his contract till 2028, 2029 still. So like it's still pretty long to my understanding. So with it being that length, they're not pressed. And there was interest from other clubs. Obviously, he did provide that commitment to Dortmund. I do think this is a talented player. I think that um, and these are some of the conversations I guess I've had with people since this was announced. Some people do have reservations about a player from the championship coming for that fee, but at the same time, like I do feel that the championship isn't, a league you can kind of just like sniff at. I think it is a very intense league. Obviously, the amount of minutes he's played at his age kind of speak to his ability on the pitch and to be an important player. He was a difference maker for Sunderland and was a big reason as to why they got to where they are in the Premier League next season. So I do think this is a player that comes with, while he might be young, he does come with a fair amount of experience for his age. Obviously very athletic, can play a few positions for us. I was seeing that they plan him to be a bit more of an 8 or a 10, which is obviously kind of like what we would have expected. There have been obviously a lot of comparisons to Mecha, and that's kind of where the fee comparison comes in into play for me as well, because you had a player, and obviously the Bundesliga is higher tier than the Championship. Obviously, no one's arguing that. That's very obvious. But I will say that I feel like Job I guess in the role he played for Sunderland, played a bigger role for that team achieving what they did than Felix Nemecha did, for example, when he moved to Dortmund for that similar fee. So I feel like if we're talking about that, I feel a bit more comfortable with it, just because that does seem to be more so the going rate for players of this ilk. And yeah, I mean, at this point, I just wish him well, and I do hope that he's able to, do well for us and really kind of revolutionize our midfield to a degree, because we do need a little bit more athleticism and creativity in that midfield. Once again, we've talked about this before. I do want to temper those comparisons to Jude. Obviously, playing similar positions, but they are different players. And I really do hope that he is able to forge his own path at Dortmund and create that own legacy without having that shadow, bear down on him too much.
I mean, I thought that Joe was going to come and have a similar level of fitness to Chukwuemeka, but I'm glad to be proven wrong. Um, but in all seriousness, we've been talking about Job for a while, and Dortmund's been talking about Job for a while, and any reservations I had about his price tag, I think at this point I'm just kind of over. It seems like this is Dortmund's priority signing for the summer, and if they're that confident in Job, then who am I to say that he's not worth the 30 million transfer? And also to Brian's point, I do think that the price tag of 30 million is a little bit indicative of just the newer reality of transfers and the transfer market. And we were able to sign Girassi for considerably cheap considering his
That's
output. What was
fake.
that,
That's so
18
fake.
million plus bonuses? And look, he's on a huge contract with lots of money, but just the ability to trigger a release clause. Without that release clause, he would have been much more expensive, and we would still be paying him a really high salary. So there's at least a little bit to be saved, maybe 10, 15 million there. But
So to your point
um,
there, oh, sorry, Joey, go
yeah,
ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
I don't think I had too much more to say other than I I think I'm looking forward to seeing Job play, and don't really have any I don't really have any expectations right now other than looking forward to watching him and kind of making up my mind from his performances. Like let's see how he does. Let's see if Dortmund and Kovac think he's ready to be a starter for Dortmund next season. Um, I don't know. Maybe he does have that quality.
Yeah, so the wage for Joe Bellingham was reported at 3 with bonuses potentially raising it to 5 million. I just took the 5 million and added that for the average annual value of this transfer. So just to give you the comparison, Sabitzer, his average annual value over his 4-year contract is 11.75 million euros per year plus add-ons. Um, Jobe Bellingham is at 11.6. So he's cheaper per year over a 5-year deal than Sabitzer. Now, you're going to say to me, like, Sabitzer's intending to play all 4 years here, or at least the club's more likely to have planned it that way, whereas Jobe is likely to be sold. But if Jobe gets sold, that's probably because he was either crap or because he was more likely very good. And even if he's somewhere in the middle, like the resale value of Joe Bellingham compared to other guys, like Nemecha's a little different because he qualifies, I believe, as an English homegrown because of his time in that city academy. But when you compare him to Sabitzer, Joe Bellingham's like floor as a transfer is like a 25 million pound move back to a relegated championship side or a lower end Premier League side. Like that is the floor of this transfer. This is a very like low risk, but like we've seen a lot of transfers in recent years where like something has gone incredibly wrong. Like Nico Schultz being a allegedly despicable human, Sebastian Aller having cancer. Like aside from another freak incident like one of those, the Joe Bellingham transfer is actually like really conservative. Like there's a very high floor here. And then I think the Nemecha comparisons are actually like pretty funny because you said like Joe Bellingham was a little bit more meaningful to his side. So just to compare it for progressive passes, they rank out similarly in their squads. Like Nemecha is about fifth. Joe Bellingham was sixth for Sunderland this season. For XG, Joe Bellingham is way higher for his squad. He's sixth. Nemecha's down at like 10th, 11th, 12th, something like that in his last season at Wolfsburg. They're literally exactly the same in terms of their squad for expected assisted goals at around sixth. But the big difference here, and this is what really matters to me, is minutes. Like Joe Bellingham is one of the most used Sunderland players. He's like second or third for most minutes. Nemecha came over, had a little bit of an injury in his age 21 season, was injured the season before, and Joe Bellingham is like technically in his age 18 season. He is 19 now, but he doesn't turn 20 until well into the next season. So this is technically what you would call his age 19 season. So he's so incredibly young. You're getting so many more minutes. And in terms of the fee, like like you guys are talking about how the market's been inflated in recent years. I would almost argue that Job's fee is an indication of like the market stagnating, if not regressing, because last season we saw Archie Gray, who Dortmund was linked with, get priced out of a move because he went for like 40, 45 million euros in that range. Um,
Yeah, but if you say
despite
the market's stagnating, I feel like you're agreeing because that was kind of our point, I think, in that like this is the new reality, if that makes sense.
Well, okay, that's fair, but like just to compare it to Archie Gray, you're looking at a 40, 45 million pound transfer there for a 16-year-old who's unlikely to be a real difference maker in the first couple of years of that contract, whereas Job is a lot closer to first team ready. And at that point, it's like he should be a very useful squad player from day one. So I just think that like
I think
this is a really good transfer.
I think that point you made about the readiness for more first team football is really one of the main points, because and you can, I guess, because you have the numbers in front of you, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Nemecha had more than like 12 appearances for Wolfsburg in that first season. Maybe I'm, I don't think the amount of appearances was that high. And maybe you can get the actual number for me if you have it up there
Oh,
to cross
I
check
do,
that.
I do. So in the season we signed him, Nemecha did play 1,800 league minutes, 1,836, 30 appearances, 19 starts. But the season before that,
Mm-hmm.
um, he had 16 appearances,
So 16.
one
There you go.
start, one start though, for 323 minutes. So we're talking about like a guy who had 24 90s played. Joe
So,
Bellingham has over 24 90s this season.
and that's the thing. I feel like with a player that's in such a rhythm and has already become used to that, you have more value right away, and someone who can probably slot in a lot quicker and have more of an impact than Felix did in his first season. So I do think you're getting a lot of value there. I do know people have been on the fence with this Joe Bellingham transfer. I am a fan of the player. I do think it is a good move. Um, would have been nice for the fee to be lower? Yeah, but it's kind of like what we're saying. This is the new reality of what fees are, and if you want a quality player, that's what you're going to have to pay.
Yeah,
Not
and the other
not everyone
thing
can
to,
be Danny Svensson. So
yeah. So to continue with the point you started to make about the minutes is another knock that I've seen a lot of people say about Joe Bellingham is they just Google the FB ref and they look at the stats and they're like, oh, nothing's jumping off the page here. And to be fair, nothing is jumping off the page in terms of like your per 90s. But what I really expect from Joe Bellingham this next season is instead of him getting 39 90s, like full 90s in the league. First of all, you can't even do that in Germany because there's only 34 matches. He will probably play less minutes, even if you include Champions League football. And in playing less minutes, being a year older, I think that will allow him to put up better stats because he will be more fresh. He
he won't
won't
be
be as run
exhausted.
into the ground.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a position that we do need, because our midfield, I think we've harped on this so much on our show, is something that needs revamping, and he will add freshness to it. He'll add energy, and I think playing for a more, I'm not going to say we're super free flowing under Niko Kovac, but we're definitely more free flowing than Sunderland. I think that'll allow him to express himself more and show more of the creative quality that I'm sure he has. Because like I said, he's played in different positions. He's capable of playing as a 10. He plays as an attacking 8. Yeah, I see no reason why he'll flop or anything like that. I do think he will very much be a success for Dortmund. So I'm not worried about that.
I think so too, especially with like our aging midfielders, especially if like Sabitzer stays. Pascal Gross isn't getting any younger. We still have Felix Mecha that can play in the 6 or 8. Um, but I mean, even Emre Can is not getting any younger either.
Yeah, so Sean last season played 17 of his like 40 something matches in midfield still. I think we can kind of write that off next year. Moving over to a back three, and another thing about a back three is the progressive passing is a little bit less of a concern when you get that third center back, because your center backs can start to do a bit more of that. And that's not to say Joe Bellingham can't do it, because everyone talked about how much more incisive of a passer Nemecha became last season. He made a 25% jump in his progressive passing numbers per 90 from 4 to 5. And his 4.95 progressive passes per 90. Brian, can you tell me the new signing of Dortmund, whose progressive passes per 90 is also 4.95?
The new signing for Dortmund that has the
There's
same.
only one. This
I mean,
should be easy.
Well, we're talking about Jobe, I guess, right? So is
Yep.
it Jobe? I was like, is
Yeah,
it a trick question or something? Like, what am I missing here?
No trick question. You were supposed to just fill that in, and
I
I
thought
could
you were
keep going.
I thought you were referring to Svensson.
No, but Jobe's
That is true.
progressive passive numbers are the exact same as Nemecha's this past season. Jobe being a year older should provide a little bit more improvement in that regard. And I think that'll just continue to improve with time. And he got the 5-year deal, which is what I asked for. It's a like, is this what I would like to spend on him? Like you said before, no, but I think this is within the pain threshold.
100%. Agreed there.
Okay, let's move into the next story. This is coming from Sport Build. We have a selling problem players such as Sula, Brandt, Sabitzer, Sean, all keen to stay due to their big contracts. Every time Build puts out a story like this, I get a little annoyed. So, you guys are gonna have to talk first while I get my anger in check.
That's fine. I mean, with regards to this, when it comes to the players they listed, I do think obviously there are certain ones that Dortmund will have more of a problem moving on. The one of them mainly being Sabitzer, because obviously he hasn't had a good season. He is getting up into his 30s. So I do think, and especially with his high wages, I do think that obviously is problematic at this point in time in terms of moving him on. Uh, Emre Can, I do think he has a market still in a place like Italy or something like that. But if he's trying to stay, then there's no way to force him out. Uh, Brandt, at this point, until we sign another number 10, considering Gio looks likely to be leaving, I don't think you can part ways with until you have an actual plan. So that's not even set in stone that we are going to be getting rid of him, because there's no real plan now, considering the main target we had, Cherokee, isn't signing, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then Sula, I don't think personally is a problem at this point in time. I mean, yes, the wages are high, and obviously we would love to see, that contract renegotiated so that he's not on such high wages. But he is a player that has, as we talked about in recent months, shown his quality once again. And if you continue to show that quality, then I don't think that's necessarily part of the problem there. But yes, it in a nutshell, there is a bit of a problem in terms of certain profiles, certain players that if they want to stay, then there's not much recourse that we have. And on top of that, even if they did want to leave, there might not necessarily be a market for them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said there, Brian. Um, I'll kind of go in reverse order here. I think with Sula, and this is just my early prediction, I think Sula stays, or I think he gets a new contract if Niko Kovac stays beyond the end of next season. He's got a really good relationship with Niko Kovac, and Kovac seems to have been able to get the player out of him that we know he's capable of. So I don't really have a problem with Sula staying right now. I feel the same way with Brandt. Like Brian said, unless there's another plan, then we can't really be trying to sell him. When it comes to Sabitzer and Emre Can, I do think that there is. I think that there is some market for Sabitzer just because he's played at so many different clubs that I think he could find a transfer somewhere. I think the bigger question is, does he want a transfer? And um, when the player doesn't want to leave, then that makes it really difficult for the club if there's not, if they're not on the same page. Um, and then, yeah, with Emre Can, just like Brian said, I do think there's a market for him. Italy, maybe in the Turkish league. He is still a player of quality, and got to give him respect for being our captain. But it, I would, especially with the midfield rebuild this summer, I wouldn't, really wouldn't put it past Dortmund to try to seek a transfer for Emre Can because they could recoup a little bit of money, um, rather than just letting him go for free at the end of next season.
So for me, I think the hardest guy to sell from a club perspective is actually Nicolas Sula, because his 1 year contract, like his contract is expiring the soonest, and it is the biggest this year. And I think that he may, given some of the he's starting, he's not starting, some of that stuff, I just think that he will be the one most likely to want to just run down his contract. And I'm perfectly fine with that. He came in on a free, he can leave on a free. Um, if we're talking, like you just heard some of the prices for players we've signed in terms of average annual value, Sula's average annual value of his transfer is just his wages. And I think to replace what you will get from him this season for the amount of wage he is making, I don't think you can do it. Like, I think you can get a guy with a lot more upside who's not going to be as good this season. I think you can get a guy that's a little bit worse for more upfront but less wages. But I just don't see Dortmund finding a backup center back, potentially fourth choice center back with the quality of a Nicolas Sula, even if he's the third center back that's starting. Like I feel happy with that. Um, so I just don't feel any need to sell Nicolas Sula. Julian Brandt is the other one whose contract expires next year. I have I feel the same way about Julian Brandt. I think that you just get too much value from him as a backup 10. And I think that letting both players expire, like Julian Brandt contract extension and Sula signed on a free, is less annoying to me than Marcel Sabitzer, because Marcel Sabitzer's on his first contract. A lot of the stats are down in terms of his overall career output. Some of them aren't as bad as you would think, I will say. And they're still not bad stats. Like, I think the biggest flack he's received this year is because he has 1 goal and an assist, but it's from 5.5 expected. And so I think if you have some of these smarter clubs, they're going to look at that and be like, maybe we can still get a lot out of this player. And I think that there is a market. The market just really depends. Like, I think every player that we've talked about, and Salias, there are clubs that want to have these guys on the pitch for them next season. It's just about if the fee and the salary they can offer them and the city they can offer them to live in is going to match up with what these players want, what their wives want, and all that. So, like, I'm not necessarily worried about, like, selling all of them because I don't want to sell all of them. I'm worried about which one we do sell, and making sure we make the right decision on that, and making sure we get it done early so we can allocate wages of incoming signings a bit better.
Yeah, sounds about right to me.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, like you're still getting utility out of a couple of these guys, so yeah, it's not the end of the world if they stay. Obviously, I do think you do need to start planning for the future, and I do think Dortmund are slowly starting to do that. I forget the name of the defender we were linked with, but we were linked with a young defender from Rosario Central, I believe it was. But we had that in the plans according to the reports. And then obviously, I do think they're still looking for a 10 because I mean Cherokee was being rumored as well for the longest time. So I do think something is in the works. But yeah, you do need some sort of plan of succession regardless.
Yeah, I think Brian wants us to sign a 10 at the, like, right out of the jaws of another Italian club like we did Svensson for one of his boys that's been heavily linked with Como in recent weeks. But let's move on to the next story.
Shout out
In a
Martin
recent-
Baturina.
Yeah, I was leaving the deep cut for our most diehard listeners, but let's move on to the next story. In a recent L'Equipe interview, Ray and Cherokee stated the following regarding his failed winter move. I found it really disappointing that they didn't want to let me go, especially because I kept my word and told OL clearly that I would only move for a transfer fee. Does this change any of your feelings about who is at fault for this deal not going through?
I've always been behind the fact that it was mainly Texter. I understand there's, criticism leveled at like when bids were sent in and all that stuff. But there's obviously two very different stories there. And it's clear one side was clearly telling that, oh, we came super late with it and whatever. But the players coming out here and saying like, hey, like, like they kind of came in and there was a bid and I was able to leave for a fee and they kept me. So it really kind of, at least for me, puts more weight behind the argument that we did try as a club. We did try and do this a fair way, and Texter, for one reason or another, just decided that that's not what he wanted. Obviously, there may be more ins and outs that we don't know about, but considering what the players been saying and what club officials have said, to me, it's clear based on the information that we have that this is mainly on Texter. So.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that 100%. There's a lot of hearsay suggesting different things, but this is Texter. He's kind of been a pain in the backside for the entirety of Dortmund's pursuit of Cherky. And I'm sure that Texter is quite happy that Cherky is not coming to Dortmund for whatever reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing I want to say on this is two completely separate and unrelated statements. The owner of Manchester City is a member of the Saudi royal family, and the second unrelated statement is the biggest investor in John Texter's major business. His money-making enterprise is DAZN. The biggest investor, any guesses? It's the Saudi investment fund, I believe. So I'm not sure if there was like any agreements there, any discussions, because those are completely unrelated statements.
Completely.
Huh?
Completely.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely, completely unrelated. But let's move on to the next story. This is related to the podcast, and you can have my word on that. FC Copenhagen want to keep Ramai on loan. Ramai doesn't want to sit on the bench at Dortmund. Koval is set to stay, so another loan may be on the cards. And first of all our listeners right now are going at home, who is this guy? Who is this Ramai you guys are talking about? And I'm on the same page as you, because before I saw this story, I was genuinely like, oh my god, I forgot we signed a goalkeeper last winter.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear that Ramaj, he did well for Copenhagen, and obviously there's every reason for them to want to keep him. I think with the story that I read with regards to this, he does want to play at a higher level next season. But obviously now with the news that we have with Kobel staying and all that, I mean, it doesn't make sense to have another backup on top of Meyer at this point in time. This guy is clearly seen as the successor to Kobel whenever it is that he leaves, or if not successor, if Kobel does stay for an extended period of time, once Meyer is no longer at the club, then to bring him in for him to be the competition for Kobel. So yeah, it makes total sense for him to go out on loan again and get more experience somewhere. I'm sure there's numerous sides that he could fit into that fit that sort of bracket that he wants to be in, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the weeks to come. But I do believe that he is coming with Dortmund to the Club World Cup, so we may see him make an appearance there. So you might actually end up seeing him for the first time in Dortmund colors. So that could be interesting.
I think in my ideal world, I would like to see. Of course, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Is it Diant Ramage? Is it Diant?
I thought it was Ramage. Yeah. So
I'm not entirely sure. Either way, I think ideally I would love to see him go on loan to a lower table Bundesliga side. I don't know who's in the market for a goalkeeper right now, but if he could get first team minutes at like a Union Berlin or a Bochum, where he could get experience playing in the top tier of German football, and at a club where he was definitely going to get a lot of shots on goal. Um, Again, that's kind of my ideal world. Prepare him to come back to Dortmund and fight for the number one place. And I mean, maybe we'll have Kobel another 4 years, or maybe he'll leave in two. But um, if Dortmund sees him as a potential um, future of Dortmund goalkeeping, then I'd like to see him get some minutes in the Bundesliga.
Joey, just quick fact check for you. Bochum, Bundesliga.
Oh, did Bochum get relegated?
Bundesliga 2, Bochum. Ooh.
Oh,
Ooh, sucks to be
Ooh.
a rival club of Borussia Dortmund right now.
Doing better than
And-
Schalke.
We'll see. The battle for relegation to the third tier is on.
Fine, send him to Heidenheim then.
Heidenheim do need a goalkeeper, so that's not a bad shout. He may want to, I don't know. I might prefer to see him at a French club that's a little bit more mid-table.
It's a good shout too.
Rather than knock a young goalkeeper's confidence when he faces 50 shots a game. That's about what Hoffenheim have last couple seasons. But let's move on. Sebastian Dennis of Foot Mercato said Borussia Dortmund is among the clubs interested in Mainz midfielder Anthony Cassie. I don't know. Did he run his contract down? If not, please God no. Please God no. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think
he played very well last season.
His contract is up in 2026, I believe. So I mean, I think and the market value is around 12 million euros. I don't know how much Mainz is looking for him. So that's a separate issue. But I mean, I think once again there are obviously better options for Dortmund to look into. This would be no more than a backup for what we already have in midfield. I don't think it's an improvement on what we have in the midfield. So I mean, it would really depend on the fee and who else we sign. I definitely wouldn't want to see the signing as a starter for next season.
I don't think I have too much to add on this. I think there are better options out there, and yeah, a small fee as a backup player maybe, but again, I think there are better options out there.
I mean, yeah. I think we can all give a shout out to Anthony Cassie's agent, whoever you are. Great job. You got the story to be run. You did your job. Good work. Keep it up. I like the way that you are fighting for your clients' wages to be increased. Great work. Keep it up. But now we can move on to the next story. This is a bit more interesting for me. And I think it was Joey actually who on one of our recent shows said he wanted to see an American at the club every year. You thought you were getting Cole Campbell, but I raise you arguably the best American U17 prospect out there. It's arguable with Kevon Sullivan according to scouts, and this is a guy already at the club extending his contract. He signed a long-term contract extension with Borussia Dortmund, rejecting interest from Manchester City, Barcelona, and Bayern. The club sees him as one of the best players in the world of his age group, and that is Mathis Albert. This guy coming over from LA Galaxy's academy last season was only 15, and really early into the season, almost definitely before his German was functional, was playing for the U19s up 4 ages, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I can barely count that high. And this guy was scoring goals. I think he was one of the youngest goal scorer for the U19s since maybe Mukoko. I think he was a little bit younger than Musakawa when he scored. Also this season, like 2 of our better players for our U19s were 15. Anyway, the deal's been finalized. I don't know how much of this guy you two have watched. I've only seen a couple matches and some highlights, but he is talked about in a very, very big way. A lot of the scouts have basically said Kevon Sullivan without the hype, who our American listeners will know, and everyone else will be like, who?
Yeah,
Keeping this guy at the club for the foreseeable future is a good move. That's all
it
I'm gonna
is.
say.
It is, and I feel like we've been craving more players to come through the academy and graduate and come into the first team. And obviously, having a player like this, and obviously a different bracket, Inacio as well, it's just good to see that there are these players that have the potential to make it to the first team, and really be good players for us. Because I feel like we've talked about this a lot. We don't see that as often anymore, and that's something that the club really needs to return to. So the fact that a player like Albert is coming up, that's really good to see.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just like to see like Elias Benkara, Tyler Miser, or I forget his name every single time. Um, but the other center back who he signed from Sassuolo, U17s. Like I want to see one of these young center backs make the jump in the next couple of years. Like all these prospects are super super highly touted, but even if it's Musa Kaba, like I want to see one of the guys. Uh, so ideally Benkara, Miser, Kaba. I'd like to see one of the German academy guys that's been with the club since they were like 13, 14. Really make their debut for the club, make that step up because I think that really is special. Luca Reggiani, every time I forget. Sorry about that, Luca. I know you're a big fan, learning your fourth language of English. But yeah, let's move on to the next story. Aki Vatska's last act as CEO will be to finalize the extension of the partnership with Dortmund and Puma. The kit deal now running until 2034. The deal is basically finalized. Will bring in 30 million euros per year for the club. I'm wearing a Puma kit.
I
I
am
mean,
also wearing a Puma kit.
I mean, yeah. When it comes to special kits, and every now and then, either the home or away, they could really, obviously, come up with some great designs. The 30 million's obviously nice, but when you look at it, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, the Club World Cup kit, is that actually the Club World Cup kit?
It's only been leaked as far as I'm concerned. I have not seen an official announcement. If that is the
That
actual
hurts.
kit, I mean that's gotta win an award or
That's an
something
eyesore.
for yeah.
A-
It's
As
bad.
is the Cup kit for this season. So I mean,
The
like,
cup kit is worse.
Kit is terrible.
Like we did get like 50% better from the cup kit for the Club World Cup. I don't know why we're having our seventh jersey release of the season when we haven't even worn the white ones.
Yeah, whatever happened to the
Like,
white one that looks stained when it's brand new? I mean, like, come on. It's not so much an issue I have with Puma as it's an issue I have with like who is designing these things? They're terrible.
Puma,
but
the,
then
their
you,
the
issue-
designers at Puma is who I have, or
But
the
then you
designers
get-
at Dortmund who work with Puma. I don't know.
but then you get the special kits that are awesome.
Yeah.
Like the one that they just released, the neon one, that was beautiful. Why can't that
Pretty
be
sick.
like a, yeah, like why can't
Yeah.
that be a home kit or a cup kit? Like
The Colin Steel kit was beautiful too.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's like they're clearly capable. It's just I don't know what the logic is. Anyway, yeah, that's all I
Yeah.
have to say about that.
We got 10 more years of it.
The special kit, like they can't make as much money on the special kit as they make on like the actual home kit that I'm wearing. First of all, the home kit this year, like it's not special, but it's just good. It's good.
It's
I-
sound, yeah.
It's clean.
Yeah, like it's good. It's a Dortmund kit. It looks like a Dortmund kit.
How do we feel
The
about
away-
Vodafone? Since we're talking about it.
I
I
think
mean, this block is terrible.
yeah, aesthetically the Vodafone will look much nicer than the one
I
in
think
one.
so too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we also got it off red for one of the kits.
For the home kit, I believe.
Yeah, the home kit, which is what matters most to me, honestly.
I mean, we like the away kit we hardly wear anyway. We wore it for like 4 matches this season
Well,
or something.
it was a Stuttgart kit. It was the literal Stuttgart kit. They just copy pasted the Stuttgart kit and changed the colors.
Well,
Like
Stuttgart had one of our kits a couple years ago. Is there a way?
Puma's paying us so much money they can't afford a design team, and they just recycled that kit.
Or they take the old kits and create some kind of Frankensteinian monstrosity.
Okay. Unfortunately,
Anyway.
we have 2 quick stories to discuss remaining. We'll try and keep this under a minute each. Jadon Sancho's situation continues to be monitored by Dortmund. Manchester United wants to sell the player. I'm against it. I'm so out. I'm outer than out. I'm not even interested at any fee. No fee. Not interested.
I'm interested in low fee and obviously cut wages if they're capable of doing that. Because I do think there's still a player there. I understand your sentiment though, Eli, 100%. Like I get it. But I do think realistically speaking, if Dortmund can bring him in for, not astronomical wages, I think you're okay. I really think you're okay.
What's the wage there though?
I
What's
think-
the wage?
I would say no more than like 6 or 7. No more than that.
I would say 3.
I'd say
Like
5.
my 100%.
I think 5.
honest
I think 5
Yeah,
is a
5.
good.
is
5 is a good number then.
3 with bonuses. I'm not starting at 5.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, you definitely want it to be more performance. Sorry, Joey, go ahead.
I mean, I think Sancho has made it known that he wants to come to Dortmund, and I do think that there is a player there, and he brings a positive personality to the locker room. I think at Dortmund, I think if it's a fee that is reasonable, probably wouldn't be able to get him for 20 or less, but that would be my idea. Again, low wages and not a guaranteed starter. And I could be happy with and a long-term contract. I don't want
Long-term contract is the other
if
thing.
Sancho does come back, I don't want some kind of BS where he's going to leave in another year. If he's coming back, then he's got to commit, and then he can kind of remake a name for himself in Dortmund, and I think he is capable of doing that. But if these rumors just fade away, then I'm not going to be real upset either.
That's the other side of it. I don't think this is someone that Dortmund need to chase. If something comes up and they're capable of pulling it off, fine. But I do think after this summer, wherever Sancho goes, if it's not Dortmund, then that's where that chapter needs to close.
Yep.
I wouldn't even give him a 3-year contract at the wages I said. This is a guy with 0.3 non-penalty expected goals and expected assists per 90 this season in the Premier League. And if you want to say, oh, it's the Premier League, he comes to the Bundesliga, maybe it's a little easier. Last season 0.35. Like that's not an attacker. You want to convert him to 10, which he's never successfully done. I really don't see it. He's about to approach the age curve when he's going to get even worse. This is a dribbling reliant player who's not been able to dribble for a couple of years aside from last year in the Champions League, and even then the stats weren't great. So I'm really out. I'm so out. But let's move on to the final story. Kjell Watt to get loaned to a top 2 Bundesliga side for senior minutes. Bochum is interested. I'm happy with anything but Bochum.
I'm a little disappointed, frankly, in the sense that I do feel like, especially coming into next season, I would have hoped that maybe he would have gotten some substitute minutes. But I do understand the need for him to play more regularly. But yeah, I do agree. I think there's other clubs than Bochum that he can go to. I just think that's conflict of interest right there. So I think they can find him another place to go.
Well, I agree with you in that sentiment. I do think that Bochum could be an easy option for him. Vatien is still very young, and if he went to Bochum for a season, he probably wouldn't have to move. Bochum is close enough. Their stadium is it's in the same region. I mean, like Brian though, I am a bit disappointed that we did not see him get more senior minutes with Dortmund in this last season, especially during that injury crisis period under Nuri Sahin. because I really thought he was going to break into the first team last season, and unfortunately, that did not happen. So, if he can get senior minutes at a top Bundesliga 2 side, then at this point, I'm for it. So that way he can come back stronger, hopefully.
Yeah, I think we need to see him get to, like, I think he's at a point where he's in between um being a substitute and being a first team like regular. Like, he's too good to just get occasional sub minutes and be in a kind of scrap. Our second team got relegated from the third tier, which doesn't help this at all. And so now you kind of need to get him elsewhere to get him more consistent minutes. Paderborn would be a good spot. Dusseldorf just sold one of their more attacking midfielders to Colm. But the big thing for me is we've seen this guy play right back. We've seen him play six. We've seen him play eight. We've seen him play 10. We've seen him play right wing. Like, he has played every position on the right side of the pitch. I just need to see him play one position for 1,500 minutes, get another couple hundred. Like, you can play him elsewhere for a quarter of the time, but I need to see him play in a role, and I don't want it to be right wing. He did dominate in terms of his dribbling in the third tier. SofaScore had him at 64% dribble success rate. That is stupid good because he's physically superior to that level. He's probably not ready for the Bundesliga yet. So I think two Bundesliga is a great option. And I think his long term home is in midfield. And I think he needs to go somewhere where he can play either six or eight and just play it every single week. That's all I need to see. Do you guys have any last Watson thoughts? Any good shouts other than like Dusseldorf,
I think
Kiel? Kiel
Could be
has sold
decent.
another midfielder, so that's actually a
Kiel.
good one. Sorry, Brian, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just remembered.
No, you're right.
Remberg moved to Hamburg, and Kiel have bad midfielders.
No, I think Kiel is a good shout there. Honestly, I'm even thinking that maybe like, and this is obviously not a knock because I do think that like the Eredivisie is obviously much higher up than the two Bundesliga, but I do think for like a lower tier Eredivisie side, I think he could be a good signing as well for a year. And that could be a possibility as well because I do think that's more so a middle ground when it comes to the quality there. If we wanted him to play at a little bit higher of a level, but two Bundesliga is also fine. So.
And Brian, now that you say that, Utrecht are losing Paxton Aronson. His loan expired. He had a great season playing in midfield there, and they clearly scout the Bundesliga because they signed him on loan from Eintracht Frankfurt. So you could try and put him. I think he could actually really fit into that 8 role. He's a little less combative, but given that Paxton Aronson was a 10 in the US and playing as an attacking midfielder, and they really developed him in a combative ball winning 8 position, I think that's actually a great fit. So I would love to see that. I think that's an ideal move, but if you can't get it, then yeah, the two Bundesliga.
Yep, sounds good to me.
My only other shout for Vetjen would be maybe Cologne. They were talking about a potential transfer for Ozchan, and maybe they'd rather have a younger player in the midfield.
Well, they
I don't know.
just spent 5.5 million on a 22-year-old midfielder, Joey. Like I said before.
Well, maybe they want another one.
Well, they got Martel, who's a 22-year-old German midfielder, who's on their book. They got a 23-year-old midfielder in Christensen, who's been on their books for 2 years now. So I think their midfield is pretty stocked with talent they actually own, who is all U23s. But
All right, we'll just give him Ozchan then.
we can give them Ozgen. They need a little bit of leadership, a little bit of age, maturity in there.
A little bit of beard in
Yeah,
the squad.
a little bit
beard.
of combativeness. Like Martel, like he needs to just kick people sometimes, and I mean that in the nicest way. Uh, he's a very good passer. For the two Bundesliga, but just needs to well, regardless, we can stop talking about the two Bundesliga clubs and the promoted clubs. And Joey, is there anything you want to plug before we head out?
I would. If you are interested in my full recap of TST, I have a pretty lengthy article coming out at for Fear the Wall. So that is on fearthewall.com. If it is not out by the time this podcast releases, then it will be out very soon. So check that out at Fear the Wall.
Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still writing for Get German Football News, so my work is there periodically. But obviously, when it comes to things to plug, obviously I want to plug all our work here. Follow Dortmund Dispatch everywhere. The Bundesliga Exchange as well. We're doing good work on that. And we have more exciting stuff coming in the next month, so keep your eyes peeled on all our socials.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you listen to the Bundesliga Exchange and rate both that podcast and this one 5 stars on Spotify. Really helps, really means a lot to us. And make sure you read all of Brian's articles because he has a pretty big event coming up in his personal life that he needs to pay for. So treat it like a GoFundMe page, hit refresh 100 times, and then he might make a half a cent out of it, which will
Just
really
maybe.
go a long way for him.
Just maybe, yeah.
But anyway, that'll do it for us. Thank you and have a good one.
Jadon Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce and another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond
Jetzt
compare.
kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von Inzo an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!